All right, how's it going, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about perfumery and specifically rose in fragrances. So we're going to be talking about some of the ingredients involved in rose fragrances, what makes a more masculine rose versus a feminine rose, how you can use this to make your own fragrances at home, your own perfumes or colognes. And then at the very end, we're going to be making an example fragrance that you can follow along and make for yourself. And I'll show you guys how to kind of modify it to make it what you want. If you want more of a masculine rose or a feminine rose, or if you want a pink rose or a red rose, different things like that. So stay tuned for the, I'll put the formula and everything in the description. And of course, as always, I'll put the links to all the ingredients that you'll need and all of the materials, all the scales and things that you'll need in the description as well. So starting off with the materials that you're gonna need, okay? For sure, if you're gonna make any sort of fragrances, you gotta go with glass, okay? So I would look for a 50 milliliter, at least a 50 milliliter beaker. And obviously the links will be in the description. I'll try and find the cheapest available ones that are still good. So you could either use Pyrex, this one is a VWR, that's also fine. And then some sort of a milligram scale. It has to be, so this is a Dante Maxus, it's like 15 bucks, but it has to be readable out to 0.001 grams, because with perfumery, it is a very exact science, so you have to be very exact with everything. And in that same vein, what you're gonna need, pipettes. So 1 milliliter pipettes, you can get like 300 of them for 10 bucks. So again, a lot of these materials are not gonna be super expensive. I don't really like to break the bank with the tools that I use. Make sure that you get one that's good quality if you don't go with the ones that I link. In addition to that, you're also gonna need some perfumer's alcohol. So this can be either actual perfumer's alcohol, or usually what I do is I'll just get 96% ethanol, because it's the same thing, 96% ethanol from Bell Chemical, it's on Amazon. So get yourself some perfumer's alcohol, one of the scales, and then some of these, at least one of these, and then some of the 1 milliliter pipettes. And then after that, it's just whatever materials you want to use to make these fragrances, okay? So as far as ingredients that are used in rose fragrances, technically to make a rose accord, an accord is sort of just a culmination of ingredients that create something that smells like something. To create a realistic rose accord, there's two main chemicals that are needed, okay? So the two basic ones that you're gonna need are phenylethyl alcohol, PEA, and you're gonna need geraniol, okay? So that's kind of the more geranium citrusy part of it, and this is sort of the more warm, bready part of the smell of rose. So those are the two main ones. From there, it's just modifying it, blending it, making it more beautiful, okay? So some of the other chemicals that you can use, there's some one-stop shop ones. If you don't want to blend a bunch of stuff together, you don't even need the PEA and geraniol. So if you want one of those one-stop shop ingredients, Rose Jivco is a great one. This is a red rose, okay? And then Dorinia SA is a pink rose. So that's just a one-stop shop. It just smells like the rose. That's all you need to buy. And then the rest of it, you're just gonna buy other fragrance ingredients that make it smell like an actual perfume or a cologne, right? Because it can't just be rose. You can't just spray rose on yourself, right? It's gotta be like rose and cedar and whatever. Blend it and make it a little bit more, right? So these are two offerings that are one-stop shops. Dorinia SA by Formulating is a little bit better, I would say, just because it is a nice, delicate rose, which I personally prefer. But if you want a strong red rose, then Rose Jivco by Givaudan. So Givaudan and Formulating, you'll see these names when you're buying the chemicals. These are just two of the main, I would say 4 main huge companies, right? So Formulating is the biggest one. That's a Swiss company that makes all these chemicals that go into your fragrances, right? Like when Hugo Boss makes a new fragrance, they're not actually making that. They don't even have any perfumers. It's all the perfumers that work over at Feminiche or at Givaudan or at Takasago or at IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances. So, you know, you'll see these companies, and that's kind of just their different offerings. Each one will have different chemicals that they have that are captive, that aren't really for sale, but most of these ingredients at this point are for sale. So you can make most of the fragrances that are out there. Anyway, so one of the other rose ingredients you could get is rose oxide. This is very strong, potent, and metallic red rose, okay? So it's just part of a rose smell. There are also rose crystals. This is a crystalline powder. They're kind of a pain in the butt to use, but you can dissolve them in ethanol or in something called benzyl benzoate. Okay, you would find it on the same website. It's called Perfumer's Apprentice. You'd find it on that same website that I'll link in the description. Okay. Another general floralizer is called linalool. Okay, this was originally derived from the linalool berries. Which I've never even seen or smelled, but eventually they realized that it's very, very commonly found in most florals, including in lavender, in large amounts. So now I think they probably just synthesize it chemically, synthetically. Anyway, then we have the PEA, right? Super necessary. Then we have phenylethyl acetate, okay? So phenylethyl acetate is if you want to make more of a pink rose instead of a red rose, then you'll use a little bit less of this PEA, and then maybe you'll use a little bit more of this phenylethyl acetate. Some of the other things that you can do other than using a little bit of this phenylethyl acetate to make a more pink rose accord is you can use muguet. You add some sort of a lily of the valley fragrance ingredient like bourgeois, okay? Or some of the more super inexpensive, super common ones like lilitol, or you could also use hydroxycitronellol or liliol. Liliol is a base note and it kind of makes things sticky, so I don't know, it's a pain in the butt. So I'm going to be using bourgeois in this example to show you guys a pink rose, okay? Then there's Damascone Data. Then there is Damascone Delta. This is a very powerful, fruity, jammy kind of a fragrance note that has a little bit of rose aspects to it. Very powerful, so that you can use that to kind of boost your own accord if you're not using one of the one-stop shops. Okay. Then we already know about geraniol. Okay. Citronellol, also very important in rose fragrances. This kind of has a red rose note to it. It's a little bit weaker, but it adds a sort of a delicacy to it. And then, yeah, we talked about rose Givco. Oh, and then we have dimethylbenzyl carbinyl acetate. Okay, I'm using this at 20%, which is still quite strong. It has sort of a ethereal, general, rosy note to it. Okay. So anyway, so you have your rose notes, and then we're gonna be adding in some woody notes, some musks into there. We might even add in some oud if we like to, some sweeteners like vanillin or something called ethyl maltol. It's just a sort of a burnt sugar type smell. And then we might even add in some ambery notes like some labdanum absolute, okay? That way we're making a full fragrance. So without further ado, let's make a rose fragrance, okay? So we start with the base notes, okay? We're gonna be using just some general, I'm gonna keep it to a minimal, minimalist ingredient list so that you guys aren't breaking the bank just trying to make one fragrance here, right? So we're just gonna be using kind of the bare minimum, just the most important ingredients that are gonna be used to make a realistic smelling fragrance, okay? So we're gonna need ISO E Super, okay? This is a cedar note. It is found in pretty much every fragrance in the world right now. We're also gonna need Hedione. It's a jasmine note, but it barely has any smell to it. It's mostly as a booster and a floralizer, okay? So it boosts the projection of all of your fragrances, okay? So the next ingredient is personal preference, but I really like to use ambroxan in a lot of my fragrances. So this is ambroxan at 10%, okay? It's dissolved in DPG, so you might have to heat it up a little bit. What I like to do is I'll just throw it on my coffee maker, just on the thingy without your coffee pot obviously on it, and then it'll heat it up. Make sure that the lid is a little bit unscrewed so you don't make a little explosion in your kitchen, okay? So we'll have a little bit of ambroxan in there, okay? Then we're going to be using a little bit of galaxolide, another one of those super important general fragrance ingredients that you will smell in almost every fragrance in the world, okay? Then we have some woody notes, okay? I want to use Amber Extreme. It's a very powerful woody note. Most people will dilute it to 10%, but I'm a freaking maniac, and I love cedar, so it's like room-filling cedar wood, okay? So this is going to have beast mode performance possibly. Then we're going to use cedral methyl ether. This is also known as seed amber. It won't say it on the bottle, but this is seed amber, same thing. Another great boosting cedar note, okay? I want to have a little bit of amberiness in the base notes, so I'm going to use Labdanum Absolute at 50%. Okay, this gives it an ambery fragrance smell to it. Labdanum is derived from the rose rock shrubs, usually in Spain or in the Mediterranean. It was actually discovered probably thousands of years ago, and people used to comb it off of the beards of the goats that would feed off of the rock rose shrubs because they realized it had this amazing incensey kind of a ambery smell to it. So that's a great ingredient, been around forever, still kills it today. Another ingredient that I'm going to use is I'm going to do the bourgeois, okay? I want to make a pink rose today, and then we might even add in some oud synth. So you can use a real oud if you're the richest person in the freaking world and you're only making one. But otherwise, it smells about the same, almost exactly the same. This is by Felmanish. This is a synthetic oud called oud synth, okay? So I'm going to be using that diluted to 20% in alcohol, okay? For our top notes, we're going to need some top notes in there, okay? Some of the top notes can come from the rose fragrance notes itself, but I'm going to add in a little bit of bergamot Jivco. All that this means is it's Givaudan's offering of bergamot essential oil with all of the bergamot removed. Bergamot is the main allergen that causes skin irritation in fragrances around the world. Okay, so the number one ingredient that is causing these issues is bergamot. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. Another base note that's going to be real nice is patchouli. Okay, so I'm going to use some real patchouli. This is dark patchouli derived from Indonesia is where it's sourced. Okay, that's a great one. Next, I'm going to want to add a little bit of spiciness to it, so I'm going to use cinnamon essential oil. This was diluted down to 1%, okay? The second to last ingredient that I'm going to add in is I'm going to be using a little bit of vanillin at 10%, okay? These come as crystals as well. You can also use ethyl vanillin. It's a little bit sweeter and a little bit stronger if you want more projection to come out of it, but we're going to be using vanillin today, okay? And last but not least, we're going to use ethyl maltol at 10%, another crystalline powder that is dissolved in alcohol. This is going to give it a lot of boosting effect and a lot of sweetness to it. Okay? All right, so without further ado, what we're going to do is we'll just go by drops today. Usually you should be weighing everything, but you know, we're just going to kind of freehand it today. So we're going to take some of that ambroxan at 10%, draw some up into our 1 milliliter pipette here, and then drop it on after it's been tared out. I'm going to give it about 0.1 grams of this ambroxan, okay? Since it's at 10%, we're actually only getting 0.01 grams of ambroxan in our final mixture, okay? I'm going to do all the base notes first. This is just something that you learn as time goes by. If you look on the website, it'll also tell you, on the Perfumer's Apprentice, it'll tell you if it's a base note or not, but this is something that you can kind of feel for yourself. So Labdanum Absolute, 50%. We're going to add 2 drops, okay? So about 0.040 grams. Doesn't have to be perfect, but usually a drop of most things, depending on the viscosity of it, is going to be around 0.020 grams. So we got our labdanum in there, okay? Next, we'll go with the seed amber. Let's just go 1 drop of seed amber. 0.020. And it is exactly 0.020. Perfect. All right. Next, our favorite ISO E Super. This is an amazing fragrance ingredient. It's in every fragrance that you know. In Terre d'Hermès, it's actually around 55%. Some say that it's even more, depending on the analysis that was done. So we're going to be adding 6 drops of ISO E Super. This will give a boosting effect. It gives a good blending effect to our fragrance, okay? So it's a great blender. Next, we're going to use our other blender and booster. This is Hédione. Hédione was originally derived when they were looking for a synthetic option of, I think it was deoxydihydrojasminate. There we go. All right, so we got 5 drops of that in there. 5 drops of the Hédione. Okay, next we're doing galaxolide. This is a musk. Remember, folks, musks are going to kill the performance, the projection of your fragrance. So use them sparingly. They're really important, but okay, here we go. I'm going to tell you the weight of this. 21, so 33.033 grams of that. These are heavier. The drops of the musk, since it's so viscous, is going to be heavier than the other ones. So I'm just using 1 drop of galaxolide, okay? Galaxolide is an amazing musk, a very nice clean musk, but if you use too much of it, the musk is gonna flatten out your fragrance and it's gonna have no projection, okay? It'll have all the longevity in the world, but no projection. Then, Amber Extreme, okay? We're gonna use some Amber Extreme. 1 drop. 455, yep, so exactly 0.020. That was 1 drop. Wow, and I can smell it from here. That is a very powerful ingredient. Okay. Keeping the bourgeois for later. I'm going to add 1 drop of this patchouli. The patchouli helps to boost the woodiness into the top. Okay. It's a carrier. It's very nice. It has almost a... Wow, I love that patchouli note. We're just going to do 1 drop of that. Okay. 0.022. It's pretty good. Now, I'm not going to go overboard with the oud, okay? You guys can do that at your discretion. If you don't want to add any oud, you don't have to, okay? This is going to be a more masculine fragrance because most of my viewers are male. Not that oud is reserved only for the men's fragrances, but still. So at 20%, we're going to add 3 drops. 2, 3, perfect. Just a little bit of oud, little bit. You might not even notice it in the top, in the ending, composition, okay? Rose and oud go together quite well. Okay, so that looks like all of our base notes, right? Oh, vanillin is a base note. Sorry. Vanillin is a base note. Nice and sweet, I love vanillin. So vanillin was originally going 3 drops. They realized that they could synthesize this vanillin from the lignin that was in the pulp of this sawmill, I believe in Germany. They didn't want to waste all of this pulp, and they said, okay, what the hell can we do with it? Let's make vanillin out of it and sell it. And here we are. So, yeah, I don't know why they did that, but it was a great idea, and now everybody has access to vanillin. Okay, next we're going to be adding in some of that ethyl maltol, okay? Very sweet. It's like a sweet toffee burnt sugar. You'll know this from all of the modern fragrances these days. We're going to just go 1 drop, okay? This is a crazy powerful molecule. It's just going to add a little bit of sparkle to our fragrance, a little bit of sweetness. Okay? Otherwise, sometimes the rose ingredients, some rose fragrances can be quite... I don't know, not sweet, sour, I guess. Okay, so now we have a general fragrance in here. I'm going to use 1 of them. I'm going to sacrifice 1 of these pipettes to kind of mix it around. All right. Remember, do not tear these. Don't tear out the scale. We want to know what that ending weight is so that we can dilute it to around 20% for an eau de parfum, or we can do 10 to 15% for an eau de toilette. Depends what you want. All right, we have a wonderful, very woody, slightly oudy general fragrance. Okay, so there's the scaffold, okay? We're gonna add the bergamot at the end. We might even add in some cinnamon. Do we still want that? Yeah, we can. We'll do 1 drop. Looks like this might have, yeah, we'll do 1 drop. 1 drop of that cinnamon at 1%, okay? Mix it around, give it a smell. If you're freeballing this and you're making your own fragrance, I would recommend smelling it in between every single time you add a new ingredient. It adds a little bit of a spiciness to it, but not too much, so that's good. Okay, so next we're gonna use some of our floral ingredients, okay? So for the sake of you guys, I'm gonna keep the ingredients list to a minimum. So we're just gonna be using geraniol, phenylethyl alcohol, and butanol probably, okay? So let's get some PEA. I have it in a smaller dropper bottle here. And it's more PEA than geraniol if you want a feminine rose. And if you want a more masculine rose, it's more geraniol than PEA, okay? So we're gonna do 1, 2 drops of phenylethyl alcohol, and then we're gonna get that geraniol going. It's quite powerful, so we might even just do 1, 2 drops of that. Okay, now let's take a look. So from here, now we just have to bottle it. So we can grab either one of these little 5 milliliter containers or one of the 10 milliliter containers, which is a little more appropriate because we made 10 mils of it. And then we're just gonna pour it in. So we open it up, and again, you can buy like 50 of these for like 10 bucks on Amazon. So we pour this bad boy in. If you want, you can buy a little funnel to pour stuff in, but again, we're cowboys here, so don't matter. God, that smells good. Okay, so here we go. And then we'll give it a spray. That's the last step, is wear your fragrance. Very nice. Oh. It might smell a little bit harsh at first, but just allow it to macerate for around 72 hours is usually peak maceration, and then after that it slows down. It can happen for months, you know, but it's usually actually a common myth that it's going to take you months before your fragrance smells good. So it really slows down after about 72 hours. Give it a couple of days and then give it a smell. If you like it, you know, just make it like that. If you want to adjust things, oh, I wanted to add a little bit of, you know, extra vanilla in there, or I wanted to take out the oud. That's the freedom of it, is you can do that. This is just kind of to give you a broad, you know, a little bit of education on how to start your own, how to make your own version of this rose fragrance. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this, if you're gonna give it a try, if you wanna see more content like this. I know usually I just do fragrance reviews. I was thinking of doing one. I made a clone of Dior Fahrenheit and I was gonna show you guys how, but again, that's even more fragrance ingredients than this. So this is kind of basic. I know it sounds like it's a lot of ingredients in it, but really real fragrances can have up to 80 ingredients in them. So maybe we'll wait for a little bit to do the more advanced ones, but I thought every once in a while I throw out a little perfumery video for you guys just for entertainment, or if you want to try it out on your own. So yeah, as always, links will be in the description. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. It really helps the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.